In life, the peace we seek is often interrupted not by others, but by the reactions we give. Anger and irritation are like wildfires ignited by the smallest sparks. Yet those sparks only have power if we choose to feed them. To never get angry or bothered by anyone is not to suppress feelings, but to understand their true nature. First, recognize that anger grows from our own attachments and expectations. When reality does not meet what we desire or believe should be, the mind rebels. But if we look closely, these expectations are just thought, impermanent and changeable. When we release the grip on what should be, the fire of anger loses its fuel. The next step is awareness. When you feel irritation rising, do not act immediately. Instead, pause and observe the feeling as a silent witness. Watch it like clouds passing in the sky, knowing that this too shall pass. This practice of mindful observation brings space between the trigger and your reaction. Detachment is essential. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means choosing not to be controlled by external events or opinions. You are the master of your mind, not a prisoner to others' words or actions. When you internalize this, nothing outside can disturb your inner calm. Breath is your immediate refuge. When anger rises, focus on deep, slow breathing. Feel the breath moving in and out, anchoring you to the present moment. This simple act calms the body and clears the mind, creating room for wise choice instead of impulsive reaction. Discipline is the foundation. Like training a muscle, regularly practicing meditation, self-reflection, and physical awareness builds a mind that remains steady in storms. It is through consistent effort that peace becomes your natural state, not an occasional guest. Finally, cultivate compassion, not only for others but also for yourself. Understand that those who provoke anger are often suffering themselves. Responding with kindness dissolves tension and protects your serenity. Acceptance of life's impermanence allows you to flow freely, untouched by disturbance. In this way, anger loses its power and disturbance fades. You become like a still lake, reflecting the world calmly without being shaken by waves. This is the true freedom that arises not from controlling others, but mastering oneself. Anger is often mistaken as a reaction caused directly by external events or people. However, its true origin lies much deeper within us. It begins in the mind, sparked by our own judgments, attachments, and unmet expectations. When we feel wronged or frustrated, the mind quickly labels the situation as unfair or intolerable, and anger arises as a response to this mental interpretation rather than the situation itself. At the heart of anger is attachment, the desire for things to be a certain way. This attachment can be to how others should behave, how situations should unfold, or how life should treat us. When reality does not align with these desires, a sense of resistance grows. This resistance is uncomfortable, and anger serves as the mind's way of expressing that discomfort. In this way, anger is a sign that we are holding too tightly to how we want things to be, rather than accepting how things are. Another key root of anger is expectation. Expectations create a narrow path for our experiences, setting conditions for our happiness or peace. When people or circumstances fail to meet these expectations, disappointment quickly turns into frustration. Over time, this pattern hardens into anger because the mind clings to these rigid beliefs about how life should operate. By understanding that expectations are not reality but mental projections, we begin to loosen anger's grip. Often, anger is a mask for deeper feelings like fear, hurt, or vulnerability. Beneath the surface of anger, there might be pain caused by rejection, loss, or insecurity. The mind uses anger to protect itself from facing these uncomfortable emotions directly, because anger feels stronger and more in control. If we ignore what lies beneath anger, we miss the opportunity to heal the true wounds that cause it. The mind's habitual reactions also feed anger. Many of us are conditioned to respond with anger from an early age, learning it as a default defense mechanism. This automatic reaction becomes ingrained through repeated use, making it difficult to break free. Awareness of this pattern is the first step in dissolving anger, as it reveals that anger is not inevitable, but a learned behavior we can unlearn. Anger can also be fueled by identification with the self-our ego. When we feel personally attacked or disrespected, the ego perceives a threat to its sense of importance or control. To protect itself, the ego triggers anger to push back or regain power. Realizing that the ego is often the source of our anger helps us see that the threat is more about how we view ourselves than about the outside world. Many times, anger arises from a misunderstanding of impermanence. We expect people and situations to remain the same, but life is constantly changing. This resistance to change causes tension and frustration. By embracing impermanence as a natural law, we develop flexibility in our minds, reducing the conditions where anger takes root. Finally, anger thrives in ignorance, the lack of understanding about the nature of emotions and the mind. When we fail to recognize that anger is a temporary mental state, we mistake it for reality and allow it to control us. Education, self-reflection, and mindful practice gradually dissolve this ignorance, revealing that anger is simply a passing cloud in the vast sky of consciousness. Cultivating awareness begins with the simple but profound act of paying attention, turning the mind inward to observe what is happening within us at any given moment. Rather than being swept away by feelings or thoughts, awareness invites us to witness them with clarity and presence. This witnessing does not judge or react, it simply notices. When we cultivate this quality, we create a space between ourselves and our experiences, which is the foundation of emotional freedom. At first, cultivating awareness may feel unfamiliar or even difficult because the mind tends to move quickly from one thought or feeling to another. It often resists stillness or silence, preferring distraction or reaction. But with patience, we begin to see patterns in our thoughts and emotions. Awareness reveals how certain triggers consistently provoke anger or irritation, allowing us to recognize these moments before they escalate into full emotional storms. Awareness is like shining a light into the dark corners of the mind. It illuminates unconscious habits, assumptions, and biases that shape how we perceive and respond to the world. When we become aware of these inner workings, we no longer remain prisoners to automatic reactions. Instead, we can choose how to respond with intention rather than impulse. The practice of awareness extends beyond just noticing emotions. It includes observing bodily sensations as well. Anger often manifests physically: tightness in the chest, clenched fists, or a flushed face. By tuning into these signals early, we can intercept the emotional buildup before it becomes overwhelming. The body and mind are intimately connected, and awareness bridges that connection with gentle attention. One essential aspect of cultivating awareness is learning to observe without judgment. It is easy to label certain emotions as bad or wrong, especially anger. But awareness teaches us to see emotions as natural visitors passing through our experience. Each feeling has a message or lesson, and when we allow ourselves to observe without resistance, we open the door to understanding rather than conflict. Mindfulness meditation is a powerful tool to develop this quality of awareness. Through regular practice, we train the mind to rest in the present moment, watching thoughts and feelings like clouds drifting across the sky. This steady observing strengthens our ability to remain calm and centered, even when faced with provocation or discomfort. Cultivating awareness also involves recognizing the stories we tell ourselves about situations and people. Often, our anger is fueled by narratives that exaggerate or distort reality. By bringing awareness to these mental stories, we can question their accuracy and reduce their emotional hold. This clarity frees us from reactive patterns and allows space for compassion and understanding. Finally, awareness is not a one-time achievement but an ongoing practice. Each moment presents a new opportunity to return to presence, to notice when anger or irritation begins to rise, and to choose a different response. With consistent cultivation, awareness becomes a natural state, guiding us toward peace amid life's inevitable challenges. The power of detachment is a profound inner strength that allows us to remain centered regardless of external circumstances. It is not about indifference or coldness, but about creating a healthy distance between our inner peace and the fluctuations of the outside world. When we detach, we learn to observe without being consumed, to engage without losing ourselves, and to respond with clarity rather than react with chaos. Detachment begins with understanding that many of our sufferings arise because we cling tightly to people, outcomes, ideas, or identities. This clinging binds our happiness to conditions beyond our control. The power of detachment lies in releasing that grasp and recognizing that true freedom comes from within. By loosening our hold on these attachments, we cultivate a space where peace naturally arises. One common misunderstanding about detachment is that it means withdrawing from life or becoming passive. In reality, detachment is the opposite of avoidance. It is a deep engagement with life from a place of calm and clarity. When we detach, we can participate fully in the world without being overwhelmed by emotional turbulence. This clarity allows us to act wisely, not impulsively. Detachment also means accepting that we cannot control others' actions or opinions. Much of our anger and frustration comes from trying to shape the outside world to fit our desires. When we practice detachment, we acknowledge that each person has their own path and that their behavior is not a reflection of our worth. This shift frees us from taking things personally and from being easily disturbed. Breathing deeply and returning to the present moment are practical ways to cultivate detachment. These simple acts help us step back from emotional intensity and reconnect with our inner calm. The breath is an anchor that reminds us that beneath the storm of thoughts and feelings, there is a stillness that remains untouched by external chaos. Detachment is also about seeing situations and emotions as temporary and ever-changing. Nothing in life is permanent, and clinging to what is transient leads to suffering. When we hold this truth in our awareness, we become less reactive and more accepting, knowing that emotional waves will rise and fall, but the deeper self remains steady. Another aspect of detachment is humility, recognizing the limits of our knowledge and control. Often, we suffer because we believe we must have all the answers or outcomes precisely as we want. Detachment teaches us to surrender this illusion and trust in the flow of life. This trust does not mean passivity, but a confident acceptance that things will unfold as they should. Finally, cultivating detachment requires consistent practice and patience. The mind naturally resists letting go of attachments because it mistakes them for security. But with gentle effort, we can gradually loosen these bonds. Each moment we choose detachment, we strengthen our resilience and open the door to deeper peace. The breath is the bridge between the body and the mind, a subtle but powerful tool that connects our inner world with the outer experience. When anger or agitation arises, the body reacts first, heart rate quickens, muscles tense, and breath becomes shallow or erratic. By consciously tuning into the breath, we can interrupt this cycle and bring the body back to a state of calm, which in turn soothes the mind. Breathing deeply and slowly sends a signal to the nervous system that it is safe to relax. This physiological response helps to reduce the fight or flight reaction that fuels anger and stress. When we learn to harness the breath, we gain direct access to the body's natural calming mechanism. This connection is immediate and available at any moment, making it one of the most accessible tools for emotional regulation. The body holds memories and emotions, often manifesting tension or discomfort when we experience stress. Becoming aware of these sensations through the breath allows us to release physical tightness that might otherwise escalate into emotional turmoil. For example, a tight jaw or clenched fists are often physical expressions of anger. Gentle, mindful breathing invites the body to soften, breaking this cycle. When we focus on the breath, it anchors us in the present moment. Anger often grows from ruminating on past grievances or worrying about future outcomes. By returning to the breath, we redirect the mind from these distractions to what is here and now. This presence interrupts the mental stories that feed anger and replaces them with calm awareness. Practicing breath awareness can be as simple as noticing the rise and fall of the abdomen or the coolness of air entering the nostrils. This simple focus encourages mindfulness, creating a pause where choice becomes possible. Instead of reacting immediately to provocation, the breath offers a moment to observe, consider, and respond thoughtfully. The breath and body connection is also foundational to many meditative and movement practices, such as Qigong, Tai Chi, and yoga. These disciplines emphasize synchronization of breath with movement to cultivate balance and harmony within. This integration supports not only physical health but emotional resilience, reinforcing the mind-body link as a path to inner peace. When we cultivate awareness of breath and body, we develop sensitivity to early signs of rising anger or agitation. This early detection is crucial for self-mastery because it allows us to take conscious steps before emotions overwhelm us. The breath becomes a guide, signaling when to pause, soften, or release tension. Finally, the breath is a reminder of life's continuity and impermanence. Each inhale and exhale reflects the natural rhythm of change. By aligning with this rhythm, we become less attached to momentary disturbances and more grounded in the steady flow of existence. This awareness deepens our capacity to remain calm amidst life's challenges. Self-mastery is the journey of gaining control over one's mind, emotions, and actions. Discipline is the foundation upon which this mastery is built. Without discipline, the mind remains restless and easily swayed by fleeting desires or external circumstances. Discipline, practiced consistently, trains the mind to remain focused and steady, enabling us to respond rather than react to life's challenges. Discipline is often misunderstood as rigid restriction or harsh self-denial, but true discipline is rooted in kindness and respect for oneself. It is the commitment to cultivate habits and practices that nurture growth, clarity, and balance. Through daily effort, we gradually reshape the mind's tendencies, transforming impulsive reactions into thoughtful responses. Building self-mastery requires patience, as the mind is conditioned over many years to follow habitual patterns. Each time we choose discipline over distraction, we strengthen the mental muscles necessary for self-control. This consistent practice creates a sense of inner confidence and calm, even in the face of provocation or difficulty. Discipline manifests in many forms, such as regular meditation, mindful breathing, physical exercise, and ethical conduct. These practices align the body and mind, fostering harmony and resilience. When discipline becomes integrated into daily life, it naturally diminishes the power of anger and agitation, replacing them with steadiness and peace. An essential aspect of self-mastery is learning to observe one's thoughts and emotions without immediate identification or reaction. Discipline supports this capacity by creating the space to pause and choose a constructive path. This pause interrupts the automatic cycles of anger and frustration, allowing wisdom and compassion to arise. Self-mastery through discipline also involves setting clear intentions and goals aligned with one's highest values. This focus directs energy and attention toward what truly matters, rather than being pulled by distractions or negative influences. Discipline helps maintain this direction, preventing the mind from drifting into turmoil or resentment. The practice of discipline is not about perfection, but about returning again and again to the path of growth. Each moment presents an opportunity to recommit to self-awareness and mindful action. Over time, these small, consistent efforts accumulate, leading to profound transformation in how we relate to ourselves and others. Through discipline, the mind becomes like a well-trained instrument, flexible yet strong, responsive yet controlled. This mastery creates freedom from the chains of impulsive anger and reactive disturbance, opening the door to lasting peace and clarity. Compassion is the heart's response to the suffering of others, a gentle understanding that we are all connected through shared experience. When we cultivate compassion, we open ourselves to seeing beyond surface behaviors to the deeper struggles that drive them. This perspective softens the mind's tendency to react with anger or judgment, creating space for kindness instead. Acceptance is the practice of embracing life exactly as it is, without resistance or denial. It does not mean passivity or resignation, but rather a clear acknowledgement of reality. When we accept situations, people, and even our own emotions without fighting them, we conserve energy that would otherwise be spent in conflict or frustration. Together, compassion and acceptance form a powerful antidote to anger. Anger often arises from the illusion that things should be different than they are. By embracing acceptance, we release this illusion and stop pushing against reality. Compassion then allows us to respond with empathy rather than hostility, recognizing that others are imperfect and vulnerable just like ourselves. Compassion towards ourselves is equally important. Often, the harshest judgments come from within. When we accept our own flaws and struggles with kindness, we reduce self-directed anger and frustration. This inner compassion builds resilience and strengthens our ability to extend the same understanding to others. Practicing compassion requires mindfulness, being fully present with the experience of suffering without turning away. It calls for courage to face discomfort and open the heart. Over time, this openness becomes a source of strength, enabling us to remain calm and grounded even when provoked or challenged. Acceptance also involves releasing the need for control. We may wish to change people or circumstances to fit our desires, but this often leads to disappointment and anger. By accepting what is beyond our control, we find freedom and peace. This acceptance does not mean abandoning our values, but choosing where to focus our energy wisely. Compassion and acceptance create a shift from judgment to understanding, from resistance to flow. This shift transforms how we relate to conflict and difficulty. Instead of reacting with defensiveness or aggression, we respond with patience and grace, diffusing tension and protecting our inner calm. As we nurture compassion and acceptance in our daily lives, we gradually dissolve the barriers that separate us from others. We recognize the shared humanity behind every action and the impermanence behind every situation. This recognition allows us to hold anger lightly and move through life with a peaceful heart.